Hey, salut friends. I did a video a few months back called 10 Neoclassical Fragrances where I shared some modern fragrances that have roots in the past. This video is essentially going to be the opposite of that, where I will share some that are from the past but have some standard characteristics that connect them to the current day. Of course, this could be a very long list, so I have put them through some criteria to be more specific for this list. 1. All these are pre-90s because I have many 90s fragrances which could be a separate video. Second, these are not simply perfumes that I consider to be great, but also have some specific qualities that I think are forward-looking and fit well with today's peasant culture. For instance, L'Heure Bleue from Guerlain. Love that perfume, probably my favorite Guerlain, but it's not in this list because I think it is reminiscent of a particular time, though some may disagree with that statement. The third criteria I have considered is all these are still available today as they are from big brands and from my observation have been kept in reasonably good shape. Of course, with this case, reformulations and discontinuations are inevitable, but the idea here is also to make this video relevant for people who have never smelled these fragrances, contrary to what is propagated on social media and by brand marketers who just reflect the mass consensus. There are more and more young people who are not buying into what is sold to them as the norm and are looking for more timeless things, be it vintage aesthetic clothing, watches or vinyl records. Likewise, classic perfumes. So the idea is not to close the door on those people or expect them to scour eBay at 2:55 a.m. on a Saturday morning looking to buy a rare bottle for 4 digits. That part comes later. With all that being said, let's get into today's list, starting with 2 honorable mentions. Fougère Royale from Houbigant. This is originally from 1882, widely considered to be the first modern perfume with its use of synthetic ingredient coumarin from tonka bean, and has since defined this family of fragrances. This was re-released in 2010, composed by Rodrigo Flores, and I think is a honorable take on the original, which I got to smell at the Osmothèque in Versailles. This has the classic Fougère structure: bergamot, geranium, lavender, tonka bean and some moss. It is fresh, clean, soapy, some spiciness from the clove, carnation and cinnamon, floral qualities from the rose with the calming spirit of chamomile. Does not lean into the animalics or earthy, swampy musks. Even the original does not, surprisingly. Just the smooth texture from the amber and its overall radiant nature makes it so classy and timeless, easily one of my favorite fragrances. Next is Tabac Blond from Caron, originally released in 1919. This is the 2021 Parfum version, restored by Jean-Jacques, I would assume. This gets mentioned pretty much in all perfume history books as one of the most influential leather fragrances, was made with the idea of flappers in mind, an ambivalent pioneer of a scent profile, and yet barely gets talked about today. It's all about the leather and carnation with a buttery ylang and powdery iris, a woody floral ashtray leather fragrance that suited a visit to the Ballet Rose in the 20s and would still work in a peppy nightclub today in Amsterdam. I have not been happy with most of Caron's releases in recent years, but this re-release is an exception. Now let's get into the actual list of 10 in no particular order, starting with some Guerlain. I'm certainly not going to be able to do justice to all these legendary fragrances in this short video, so take it just as a rundown. First is Rouge Eau de Toilette from 1965. I even talked about the Privé version here recently. This is self-declared by Guerlain as the first amber fragrance for men as a counterpart to Shalimar. Let's go with it for now. It has that signature lemony, tangy, creamy opening with a notable bergamot, and somehow that lemony haze is maintained till the dry down. Some herbal nuances, possibly from some sage, lavender and basil, a floral heart with rose, carnation, jasmine and orange blossom, which was a norm at the time to create an elaborate canvas, dries down to this sublime amber with hints of leather and musk. The beauty of this is its balance, just like Shalimar, between the clean and carnal aspects the dreamy lemony vanilla and the reassuring amber and leather in the dry down. It has elements of an aromatic, a fougère and an amber and makes them work like a symphony. It is timeless for a reason, still has flankers coming out till today. Many people in France consider it to be their first adulthood fragrance when they graduate, etc. Several perfumers wear it exclusively, and it certainly deserves all the praise it gets. The second Guerlain is something that I just mentioned a few times. Shalimar from 1925, originally made by Jacques Guerlain. These are the EDP versions. This is still the grand jewel of Guerlain, and as such, they have gone through a lot of trouble to keep it in good shape. Even Thierry Vasser has talked about the difficulties in a few interviews. What it is of course this awe-inspiring amber perfume. Has this generous dose of bergamot and other citruses which continue into the dry down just like Abbey Rouge. It has the floral guerlinade heart, rose, iris and jasmine. Dries down to this labdanum and vanillin heavy amber. Some leather, musks and tonka as well, which gives it this sort of morphing and bending humanistic sensuality. Of course, it is not as musky or animalic as it used to be. There was even a civet note in it, but that majestic outlook with the glamorous side is still intact. Not that I care, but strangely, this is one of my most complimented fragrances. People are kind of happy for themselves when they recognize it as Shalimar, and have also greeted me with a well done or nice choice. Countless flankers have been made. It will complete 100 years next year, and deservedly so. Third is the last Guerlain. It is Vetiver Eau de Toilette. This has become the quintessential vetiver fragrance. Any brand releases a new vetiver fragrance even today gets compared to this. Vetiver can be a tricky note. One, it can go too much on the swampy side, like it's been sitting in muddy water in sunlight for a week, which I'm not a fan of. Second, because after crossing a certain threshold in terms of its dosage, it's all you can smell in a composition, which is unnecessary because at that point you could just wear pure vetiver oil. Here they seem to have found the right balance of all these facets, be it woody, green, grassy, swampy, smoky, cool, earthy and so forth, by the use of other notes, be it tobacco, leather or moss, which obviously bring this smoky side and rugged masculinity, but then also has a crispy, soapy eau de cologne side to it with these braising citruses, lemon, bergamot and orange. And then there is also the spicy, licorice-like aromatic side from pepper and sage. And finally, the warmth of the musks and tonka bean, all working toward adding color to the central vetiver note. Additionally has this slightly aquatic, icy, glassy quality, giving this air of coolness. Everything comes together, making this a classy, refined, signature-worthy fragrance. Let's do another Caron next. At number 4 is Pour un Homme de Caron, Eau de Toilette. This is the low version. This has become Caron's most renowned fragrance for a reason. Originally released in 1934, made by Ernest Doldorf, known for its combo of lavender and vanilla, and it is indeed a straightforward, simple fragrance, not intrusive at all. It is not going for any sort of artistic demonstration or display of complex notes. In some ways, this simplicity is what has made it so democratic and why it's loved by so many people. Other than the lavender and vanilla, it has some additional spicy, aromatic touches from sage and rosemary. This delicate, soapy, creamy side from the rose, amber and tonka bean, backed up by clean musks, smells really good even today. Many fashion designers and perfumers are also fond of it. At least one person from an average Western European or American family has worn it at some point, so it has that sense of nostalgia as well. Really an effortlessly elegant fragrance. At number 5 is Peau d'Espagne from Santa Maria Novella from 1901, one of the oldest houses in the world. This was made as an homage to Spanish leather, which was scented by different spices and essences to mask the odor of tanning process. This is a supple, buttery, spicy floral leather fragrance. Has some jasmine, rose, creating that soft, waxy touch, Carnation and violet gives this spicy, earthy and mineralic tinge. Probably some herbal ingredients here as well, because it has this medicinal, herbaceous, clinical smell that is present in many Santa Maria fragrances. Dries down to this leather, which is somewhat animalic, smoky from the birch, feels more humanistic, reminiscent of the warmth of skin colliding with leather, be it leather boots, gloves, or even an old bookcase. It feels exquisitely artisanal some way. Does smell vintage, but leather fragrances in general I find age well. Couple of more in this list in fact, especially the Spanish leather, because the full-on bird star Russian leathers, saffron leathers and more abstract accords synthesized later are still prevalent today. This was almost left out to the extent that smelling this nowadays feels novel all over again. Now let's do an Hermès next at number 6. This is Bel Ami from 1986, created by Jean-Louis Vuitton. This is one of the many leather fragrances from Hermès, particularly emphasizing the woody, aromatic, spicy aspects. It is notably different from the modern signature of the house established by the last two in-house perfumers. It does not have that polished sheen or transparency or orange minerals, and yet has that equestrian folklore kind of flair to it. You have the tangy citrus opening, which leads to a lot of spicy notes, cardamom, sage and carnation. Then goes to the leather base, accentuated by the resins and woods, amber, patchouli, cedar and oak moss. Some vetiver gives this toasty, chalky, earthy nuance. The leather itself is rugged, muscular, durable, rich, going in this worn saddle direction. Has this weathered, dark, aged, somewhat smoky, chestnut woodiness. Just a fantastic, untamed, classic, mature scent. It has influenced quite some fragrances doing this spicy leather theme, like Eau de Gloire from Parfum d'Empire. Definitely a key marker within Hermès leathers. Up next, let's do a couple of Dior fragrances. First is Eau Sauvage, Dior's first men's fragrance, made by Edmond Rudnitska in 1966. This is an elevated citrus aromatic fragrance, lots of lemon and bergamot, spicy herbal touches from rosemary, carnation and lavender. The jasmine hedione adding to this fresh, airy facet, dries down to this musky, mossy, woody scent with some sandalwood, patchouli, amber and vetiver. This smells like Rudnitska had so much clarity on what he was making, and as such, it merges elements of a classic cologne, which is refreshing, charismatic, typically within the context of men's fragrances, with the rugged sophistication of earthy, mossy, warm, chypre elements. Such a monumental fragrance. Next is Dior's Fahrenheit Eau de Toilette, which is another legendary leather fragrance from 1988, created by Maurice Rouge and Jean-Louis Vuitton. This is an ozonic petrol leather scent, which has inspired many similar creations over the years. With the current version, Demachi has also done a decent job in restoring the scent profile. The concept itself is daring, especially for a big fashion house like Dior. Some indie perfumes today take it too far, going in the asphalt, tar, spark plugs direction, but this one finds a striking balance between the deep, rugged, gasoline-soaked leather and the fresh, cool, benzene-like violet, which collide to invoke this combustive ozonic sensation. It's fascinating because just like gasoline, which smells cooling because of the benzene, this also smells cool, calm and brittle with the violet on the surface. There are also citruses, spicy nuances from the nutmeg, carnation, chamomile. Woody notes of cedar, vetiver and patchouli also come through, grounding the leather. And yet, the overall sensation is that of warmth, thrill and dynamism that is so distinctive even today. In an age where clean shaved is considered boring and facial, chest hair are coming back, these leather fragrances are going to continue to find people who appreciate them, I think. Next, let's finish with a couple of Chanel fragrances. There are really countless options, but I'm keeping it to two here. First is number 19 Eau de Parfum from 1971, composed by Henri Robert. This is a reference green floral fragrance. really known for its use of galbanum, iris, and hyacinth. The floral bouquet of rose, jasmine, lily of the valley, and ylang give it this mature, posh, stand upright kind of outlook. Some earthy moss, vetiver, and inflection of leather, which gives it a bucolic touch. Some consider it to be cold, sharp cheeks kind of a distant person. I look at it more like someone with emotions in check, and every gesture has a purpose, and they will eventually open up with time, and if you meet them halfway. Totally timeless, an all-time great spring fragrance. Last is Antaeus, a woody chypre from 1981, created by Jacques Polge and possibly with the support of François Demachy. A couple of years ago, I would not have put it in this list because though it has its fans, including me, generally this is considered to be a fragrance of its time with all its super masculine, standing half naked in a leather jacket vibe on the surface. It is undoubtedly one of those monolithic powerhouses from the 80s. In the last couple of years though, after spending time with it and seeing the experience of some others, I have changed my stance. It is spicy with the myrrh, sage and coriander. Some waxy jasmine and this dark rose adds to the sensitive soft side. The labdanum adds a smoky vibration, bringing depth and warmth, and the patchouli and moss bring in the chypre characteristics. Here, the leather is interpreted by this balmy, greasy castoreum, which creates this macabre outlook. On the other side, it has this dark, polished, lacquered aspect to it, with it being a Chanel. All this mingles to represent someone confident, butch and strong, but with an air of refinement. I have read that quite a few young fashion designers wear this as their signature, which was surprising. I myself have a friend who is a perfumista and a professional model, and she has this approach where she chooses a scent to match her look for the shows. And once for an all black show, she wore this, which matched perfectly and created a strong impression, let's say. From these experiences, I think this has in some ways transcended from being a fragrance to its own mythical character, an artistic accessory and a fashion statement that can still be appealing today and sure to create a trend on its own. So that has been my list of retro to present fragrances. Thanks for watching, take care and ciao.